we got a good video to go through, so we'll go through that. This is probably the wrap-up of the Schumer stuff because I'm just done talking about it. But we do have Mueller report. Boom, 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 boom. We have pulled quite a bit from the Mueller report, and we are excited to do a good bit more today. So it looks like we're going to be doing maybe a little bit more than an hour today, maybe right around an hour, and then we're going to be getting to some games afterwards. Nothing too crazy. We'll see how long my voice lasts. But first things first, this video is incredible. Let me check the camera, make sure. Yep, we're doing good. So this is my master class for...
Battery's dead.
How you should handle yourself, especially...
All you asked were...
There we go. Especially in a hostile debate space, I think this is the best way you can conduct yourself. Mehdi Hasan here is absolutely phenomenal. So for anybody who doesn't know, that'll be a good plug. Mehdi, M-E-H-D-I. Founder of the media company ZTO. Mehdi Hasan is a British-American progressive broadcaster and writer. He presented the Mehdi Hasan Show. And looks like he is a member of The Guardian as late as 2024, according to the wiki. Heck of a commentator. Do not agree with him on everything, I'm sure. I'm not prepared to challenge him on anything right here and now and say, this is where he's wrong, this is where I'm right. That's not how I mean that to sound. More so, I don't give blanket endorsements of people, but he does a phenomenal job from everything that I've seen, and this is a great example of it. Look at Pierce, looking so weird there with his fucking little... Don't do the same to me. Don't pause me when I look weird. That's not allowed. But look at him, looking all goofy. Mehdi looks good. Dan looks good. Pierce look fucking weird. We like to have fun here. That's why we play the games. Anybody who ever asks or ever wonders why we play the games and stuff, after talking about such serious stuff, after talking about, we did Mueller report, we did the Zelensky meeting for a while, we did Trump v. United States. That was some super heavy stuff, especially when we were going through it, which we might go through that again here in a little bit, especially as people want it. Jack Smith report as well was very, very, at least to me, extremely important. So it's a heavier topic. But that being said, I think you got to stay sane. And also, I like to diversify the content. I like having a little bit of everything to put out. I like being able to put out some of the games. I like to put some of the serious stuff. All being part of the process. I think that's a big part of it. Is staying sane is part of it. Having a rhythm, having a routine, playing some games, having a good time is got to be part of your routine, or you'll just burn out. You'll go crazy. So make sure you take some time for you. One of these things that I like to do is watch videos just like this. So we're definitely going to get this in. Rip through a good bit of Mueller report today, and then we'll hop on. We'll play some games after. How's that sound? Perfect. Let's get into this video. This was it's a 2-on-1 situation because Dan, obviously, I believe, what's Dan here? I don't want to give him the same level of plug, but what is he? United States representative. That's what he is. So, Republican in the House. So we'll see what he has to say. And I believe he is a combat veteran. Not that we would make fun of people for physical ailments or something like that on this channel in the beginning, or to start with. But looking funny or something in a pause video is one thing, but we're never going to disparage somebody, especially if they took injury in the line of duty. I've seen some crazy things, and maybe not at Dan Crenshaw, but I've seen some crazy things where people are starting to say some absolutely wild shit about people, and it's like there are no lines. I feel like we should establish there are some lines. No, like everything aside, you can be a dipshit, you can be whatever, you can support this fucking Nazi. If you were serving our country and serving our country well while you're doing that, which, we assume you were because you weren't court-martialed, the assumption is thank you for your bravery. Like, that's nothing to joke about, nothing to be shitty about here. We're not that guy.
What, you were asked a simple question. What are the legal charges of corruption against Donald Trump? Go.
I didn't say anything.
So this is a misframing that Mehdi immediately corrects and then goes down both thought trees. So that's the important thing to do. One of the things that the other side is trying to do is obviously, or obfuscate is what I was going to say, and then I said obviously, is obfuscate the issues. They're trying to go in multiple different directions at once so that you can always, they can always, but as the arguer who does that, you can always point to the fact that the person didn't bring up this, didn't bring up that, didn't bring up, your last word can be, oh, I got this in, and you weren't able to counter that. And it's, you said two things at once. So I made a claim, you said, hey, support that claim, and then I, made my piece, and then this is Dan coming back and saying something along the lines of, you were asked a very simple question, here it is, but frames it completely differently. No, I wasn't asked about that. I didn't make that claim. But also, the thing that you're saying isn't true and you're asking about, it is true. There are criminal charges. So it's important to do both, and it's a tough thing to do, but sometimes you have to juggle. You have to set the framing right, know that it wasn't what I asked about, but you're setting up a false narrative with that question as well. So let me tackle both. And he does such a good job.
Think about legal charges. The person who has there are many legal charges against Donald Trump. He's using the DOJ to make them go away, as you know, in a corrupt fashion. Piers showed us a clip at the top of the show. I don't think an American president's ever done what Donald Trump did yesterday. His top donor gave him hundreds of millions of dollars during the election. The New York Times is reporting that he just gave another $100 million to Trump.
Yeah, the transfer of money between politicians that used to be like a big deal and we used to care, that is just gone now. Like the fact that you can, one of the scariest things for me that I heard about is just going to be a new thing. So with Trump just normalizing being able to sue people as the president and just, let me go in and sue this news organization that said something bad about me. One of the things that you can do is you can sue in order to get settlements for undisclosed amounts of money or large amounts of money that you don't have to say as a bribe. It's just an open avenue for a bribe. Oh, we went through the legal system. We had this grievance. You went through it. We settled. Boom. It's done. This is disgusting. Like, you can see the foundations crumbling. At least I can. Who knows if we're getting to play here.
And the president went out on the south lawn of the White House and turned the White House into a car dealership so he could help his top donor sell cars.
This was embarrassing.
That is astonishing on multiple levels. I've criticized Republican presidents in the past. I can't think of a single Republican president who's done something that's corrupt and pathetic on Musk's behalf, by the way, but corrupt on Trump's
Good to call it pathetic. That is
the
the word for it.
On the White House lawn to put out tweets saying, I'm buying a Tesla. Yeah, for your top donor. If Joe Biden had done it, you would be screaming from the rooftops, as with your party. You'd be
exactly.
So give us a
exactly.
Kind of patronizing stuff about exact
exactly.
Corruption is at the core of this Trump White House. Look at the crypto money. The guy is running. The guy just pardoned.
Did exactly the same type of things. Notice how there's never an example given. It's just they do the same types of things. They do that stuff too.
The guy just
vague generality bullshit.
Investigating who's put money into the Trump family crypto scheme. We could go down the list of all.
This one was insane, especially with all the fentanyl talk. Like, oh, fentanyl's the worst thing in the world. Insane.
Columnists. Do you support him calling for Eugene Robinson to be fired? Do you support him calling for MSNBC to lose its licenses because he doesn't like it? I mean, this is absurd. No president has gone around and attacked journalists in the way that Donald Trump and Elon Musk have attacked journalists.
All right, I'm going to come to Dan. Well, I'll come to Dan now.
I don't remember Elon saying that, but political.
Well, he did say.
Don't know nothing about that. That's a great one. Whoever edited this video, by the way, this is by Debate Disputes. If you haven't gone to check them out, go check them out. I share them on my socials. If you haven't seen it, it might be why. If you follow me on Blue Sky, if you follow me on Twitter or YouTube, you've probably seen it already, but this one is a great one. And I think just cuts up some of the trends. Mehdi does such a good job, but this highlight is so important here. Why are we putting this up? Because Trump did the exact same thing. And I'm pretty sure Mehdi even brings up as much. But this is a thing. When you're called directly on something, don't get me wrong, you do everything you can to obfuscate away and, oh, this thing different, oh, that thing, oh, let's talk about this thing, let's lie about this thing. You do whatever you can, but if you ever do get, held down, somebody nails you down on a point, you always, oh, I don't even remember that. I don't even know what we were talking about. Why do you take things so seriously? It's diffuse. So obfuscate, and then when nailed down, diffuse. It's disgusting. It's despicable. But it's not just him. It's like the Republican strategy. It's how you communicate as a Republican.
He said it, Dan. Oh, I don't remember it. That's going to be your defense. He said it.
Did you have a problem intrinsically with the concept of what they're doing?
This keeps happening now. Dan says something and then you add something, so I can't deal with multiple things. I'm going to deal with
This
Dan
is so
first.
good.
Dan says this is all normal and we have precedent for it. Dan's being disingenuous. Elon Musk is running a government department. He is not vetted. He has not gone through Senate confirmation hearings like cabinet officials and ambassadors. George Soros has never led any kind of government department.
Yes. Thank you.
He's never run anything in
I am so glad. I think Betty's been taking my talking points, honestly. He's been following me. He's one of my many followers on Blue Sky. He's taking my stuff. But good, more power to him. Do it, because you're doing a better job than me right now as far as outreach.
Government, nor is Alexander Soros. Musk is literally standing next to the president. He's telling cabinet secretaries what to do. He's attending cabinet meetings. They're going to court. Dan's not telling you this, but there's literal court cases going on right now.
Call him a liar.
The status of Elon Musk and Doge. And by the way, government lawyers are telling the judges he's not the head of Doge. Donald Trump stood in front of Congress and said he is the head of Doge.
This is so important.
Elon Musk, who hasn't been vetted,
put him on the spot,
is the head of Doge. What's so sad to see is members of Congress like Dan just completely abdicating their responsibilities as a
abdicating. It's such a good word for it, because that's what it is. It's members of Congress abdicating their power, abdicating their seats. And look at Dan's face right now. He knows it. He knows he's nailed down by this. He didn't want to talk about that Doge stuff. He doesn't want to talk about court cases. He wants to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. He wants Pierce to save him. Man, we have been catching Pierce with just the weirdest. Again, only talking about the fact that Dan looks like sullen and that sort of thing when Mehdi is just nailing him to the wall. But look at Pierce's turtle face right now. It is the Mitch McConnell special.
As a co-equal branch of government and deferring to both Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That's kind of embarrassing to see. And I haven't finished my point. I didn't interrupt you. So when I finish, you can come back in. I know it's 2 against 1, so let me deal with peers now. Well, you're both throwing stuff at me at the same time, so let me deal with them. Yeah, pull me. It's fine. I'm used to it. Doge is a...
You're giving me two things at the same time. Just let me deal with it. He's polite about it. That's the other thing, too. I think it's important to not be too combative. I think he does a good job of not being too combative because he stays on point. So you never feel like he's going ad hom. You never feel like he's attacking you directly because he stays so well on the point and then just goes right to the next one. Hey, this is a reasonable thing to do. You both asked me one question. I'm responding to both of you in turn.
It's a joke of an outfit. Do we all want to get rid of waste in government? Of course I do. I did a long monologue on my show about
this bit is so important. The next part that he talks about fraud is so important. Listen to this.
I want to deal with corporate welfare. I want to deal with people who con the government. Of course we do. But that is not what Doge is doing. Doge is a joke, chaotic outfit. It claims to have found fraud, Piers. Not just waste, fraud. Yet Dan gave me a lecture on precise terms. Fraud? Has anyone been charged with fraud? That's a crime. Elon Musk has found no fraud. Because if he had found fraud, people would be arrested or charged by the DOJ.
Exactly.
So that's been a lie from Musk. As for waste, you know this, Piers. You've talked about it on the show. $8 billion they claim to have found. It was $8 million. They said they found $250 million of waste at the Social Security Administration. It was $500,000. They triple counted a $665 million contract. The Wall Street Journal, that lefty bastion, has found so many mistakes and exaggerations in what they found. They've been absolutely harming.
You can see Dan like taking it. He's like gulping.
They got rid of people who were trying to fight Ebola and then tried to hire them back. They got rid of people who were trying to fight bird flu and then tried to hire them back. They fired veterans at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
There it is.
Manning the crisis line for veterans. Dan is a veteran, served the country, should be outraged.
Yes, he did.
And then they tried to hire them back too. The whole
thing
is a disaster and a joke.
This is what he...
That is so great. Like he's just singing songs up here. That's the other thing too. I think it's important to remember. To them, it is a game. They think. I read a book one time. There was an interesting book that we read once, and it was called, or a book series that we used to read, and it was called Animorphs. And there was a part in Animorphs where the people that you were playing the game against, but the game was a fight to the death, they didn't understand what they were playing. They were controlled by another being. They were very simple beings who weren't a violent by nature being, but they were themselves very effective killers if you could motivate them to. They were kind of taken over by this mind virus thing, and it made them, or I don't actually know what made them do it, but basically the agency was taken away from them, and they were basically children on the inside. They were playing a game. They didn't understand that they were hurting people. They didn't understand that people were dying. They didn't understand any of that, but it made them really effective. They went in against teams, 6-on-6, 5-on-5, and they, went in and they fought and they did their thing. It's a very interesting thing to remember that to the Republicans, to Dan Crenshaw here, he pretty much treats this like a game. We're supposed to come here. We're supposed to get our punchy lines in with Pierce. We're supposed to have a good time, and we're supposed to laugh. You're not supposed to nail me to the wall on these issues. You're not supposed to do this. I came here and I did the thing. Like, I'm talking to you. You owe me good airtime. And I don't think you're owed that. I think that's a really important thing to remember, is you're not owed things like that. And especially if you're not going to be prepared and if you're going to treat it like a game, understanding that other people aren't is important. Otherwise, you're going to look like this. It's interesting to see when I see moments like this where they trip up really bad. And this isn't even anything crazy. This is just a stumbling over yourself moment because you are not fucking prepared for the level of hot, factual shit that just got thrown in your fucking face. You're not ready for it. So you are basically stalling for time at this point. The problem with not understanding that it's a game to them is you go in serious, not understanding their tactics. I think Mehdi does a really good job of understanding that it is a game. It is silly to these people. So taking it seriously, but not getting overly combative, because then that ruins the fun that can be had, by these essentially children. They don't want to have the argument to the end of the argument. They want to have the argument until they stop feeling good about it. Remember that. It's fun. It's fun for them. It's fun to have these racist ideas. Not that Dan, I'm not saying that about Dan, but the people who argue this stuff and the ones that I've seen that act this way, that have this kind of silly attitude about it. They play with the words back and forth. Oh, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does anything really mean? They play back and forth. When you really hammer them down, they do believe some of this stuff. Some of it is really messed up. Hey, what do you think about how this affects the real world? That's when they usually cut you off. And hey, remember, it's a game. We're supposed to be having fun. Why are you being such a dick right now? We're supposed to be having a good time. Oh, yeah, because people's lives are on the line, and it's like actually important. People's lives are always on the line, man. Just chill the fuck out. Like, play the game with me. No, actually, go fuck yourself. It's kind of disgusting. I think that's one of the biggest things that I find about it is these moments where elected officials come on against a pundit and don't have anything better to say than lies that he is parroting from probably other pundits is just, it's sad, it's shameful, and it's a sign of just where we are as a country.
He ran on. This is what the American people wanted. This notion of Doge and government
empty platitudes and bullshit.
The American people. There are going to be problems associated with going this fast.
I heard Dan say this before, that Elon Musk is not firing people, cabinet secretaries are. Well, that's news to cabinet secretaries, because Sean Duffy at a recent cabinet blow-up called out Musk.
And I didn't even hear about this one. I love Mehdi because he is on it with the stuff that I heard about the row with Marco Rubio, but I didn't hear about this.
It's funny, I wrote down this headline from CNN from last week. Republicans push Musk to let Congress vote on Doge cuts. It's embarrassing to see Dan's party having to go cap in hand. Please, Mr. Billionaire, who's not elected to anything, please let us vote on your agenda. And as for Doge being
notice how Pierce doesn't respond. I watched this probably like 3 times now. That's a joke. That is a joke. That is thrown out there. Like Mehdi, it's a serious enough thing. It is sad that they have to do that. But putting it in that way, it's meant to be a fun, comical way. Look at Pierce's response. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. He's not willing to give anything to this side. I think this is important to remember when Mehdi calls him out, and when people think that calling out the moderator for being biased is just always a sign that, oh, well, you're just crying, foul, you're saying that's bad. No, some of these people are intentional. They set themselves up as falsely in the center. So you should be able to call them out as such.
Say one more thing
The
about
poll out
Congress's
today.
role.
As for the poll, hold on, you had your piece. Let me answer, because Piers is rushing me on. The poll out today from CNN shows that Musk is super unpopular.
And then
He's
that's
more
worth a
unpopular than
laugh.
Trump. He's more unpopular than Vance. This is not a popular agenda, and this is not what people voted for. People did not vote for the annexation of Canada. He didn't mention Canada on the election campaign trail, and they did not vote for cuts to Social Security and Medicare, which Musk on Fox Business said this week, that's the next big thing to eliminate. We're going to cut 600, 700 billion from Medicare and Social Security. No one voted for that. It will be a disaster for the Republicans if they let Musk do that.
Ceasefire. Ukraine just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia.
What a goofy
President
bitch.
will agree to that also.
So, Mehdi, here's another example.
So glad I
would
live in
say,
America.
where the Trump hysteria doesn't really help anything. This is all part of Trump's plan to try and force a peace deal, which it clearly seems to be. The onus is now on Russia. But do you accept that what we saw in the Oval Office and all the reaction that came out of it?
Such a ridiculous take.
premature?
No, I don't agree, and it's interesting you use the word unfortunate, Piers. I've told you this before in the past when you say you're not a conservative, you're not on the right. You use language that always minimizes what the right does. If Joe Biden had done it, if Kamala...
And then now we get scrutiny from Pierce. So he was willing to laugh when Hasan was scrutinizing before, and then now Pierce is scrutinizing because he's being called out on his partisanship. The fact that you were always on one side, the fact that you always minimize from one side and then you're willing to blow it up for the other. You're a fucking hack.
Kamala Harris had done it, you'd have been up in arms. It was a joke. You know it was a joke. The entire world watched that in shock. No president has ever behaved towards an allied leader in public like that, maybe in private. We know what our European allies thought of it. They thought it was a disaster. They didn't think it was just unfortunate. And look, if your argument is bring him to the table, there are other ways to bring him to the table. I'm someone who supported a ceasefire in Ukraine for a while. In fact, a year ago, 2 years ago, if we had this conversation, I would have probably been the most dovish anti-war voice out of the three of us. Both of you would have been much more pro-Ukraine and hawkish against Russia than me. My problem is, while I want a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement, and I've said that since the beginning, even when I was doing my MSNBC show, I wanted it done by neutral
MSNBC
mediators
show.
who have the best interests in peace. Donald Trump doesn't care about
Didn't
peace.
see
He
that
wants
on
to
the
win a
wiki.
Nobel Peace Prize. It bothers him that Barack Obama got one. He loved the fake ceasefire in Israel. He doesn't mind if he gets a fake ceasefire in Ukraine. My problem is the negotiator shouldn't be an American president who is so blatantly
MSNBC show from 2021 to 2023.
He is not a neutral mediator. He only berates one side, not the other. He pushes Russian lies. If I had said the stuff he said a year ago, you and Dan Crenshaw would be attacking me as a Putin stooge. He said
This is a
Zelensky's
good job
dictator.
leaning on the
Lied
fact
about
that
Then he
these
lied
two
and said he
probably
didn't say
disagree
Zelensky
on
was
this
a dictator.
now.
He said Zelensky had a 4% approval rating. That was another lie. He lied and said Ukraine started the war, an outrageous lie. Russia started the war with an illegal invasion. He lied about how much money America has given Ukraine.
Because
compared to
Pierce
Europe.
at least
He's lied
admits
and lied
this.
and lied, and that is my problem. And my biggest problem, and Pierce, surely you agree with me, is can Russia be trusted to maintain the ceasefire? I'm glad the ball's in Russia's court, but don't forget what caused that blow up in the White House. Zelensky, not rudely, but firmly asked J.D. Vance, how do you know Russia's going to keep the ceasefire?
Which is such a good
25
question.
times Russia
Yeah.
has violated previous ceasefires. Vance couldn't answer the question, so instead he personally berated and insulted and verbally abused the president of Ukraine. That's what it comes down to now. Can Russia be guaranteed to hold a ceasefire? And can Trump ever hold Russia accountable? The one leader in the world he'll never, ever criticize.
Why should America
Such a
step
good
up
point.
as everyone's policeman, backing
He'll
them with
never,
money, with military
ever
and everything else, if
throw
Europeans
any
won't
of
even
the
pay
same
their
type of
basic
vitriol
membership
he
fee?
throws
He's right
at
there,
Zelensky,
and he's
who's
right
at the
now
bottom,
Europe stepping up.
or
I'm
at
so far with
the
this propaganda, Piers, that you as a European are
the
pushing
worst
about.
place
Europeans spent- if
in
you
the
choose
negotiation
support
place,
for refugees,
spits on him.
$300 billion on Ukraine. Even if you just do military and humanitarian aid, as Dan himself has accepted, it's equal. If you throw in refugee support, they spent billions. This is absurd.
And
to
what's
say
the
Europe hasn't spent
territorial
money on
size
Ukraine.
of Europe
has taken
against
in
America
the biggest
population?
Ukraine.
Europe is
Sorry.
many, many times
That's
the
funny.
size of the United States.
Hold on. The U.S. wanted to bleed Russia in this war. The U.S. had national security interests, they claimed. Republican and Democrats told us, including Dan
Right.
Crenshaw, in fighting Russia. So don't act like this is some humanitarian gesture or charitable act by the U.S. to Ukraine. Come on, grow up. That's not what happened in Ukraine.
Okay, I'll
or
try and
Russia
grow
for
up.
the
Let's
last
move
10
on
years.
to the
Even
final.
if you go back to
I'm
my
thinking
I'm going to Mahmoud Halil, who's this prominent figure in Columbia University pro-Palestinian student protest movement, been arrested and detained on Saturday after an executive order.
I think Mehdi is just, the reason why I like him is because he is what I expect from somebody who does this professionally. Somebody who makes good amount of money doing what they do. This is the standard. Look to him.
Being a representative of a political or social group that endorses their
Because Dan is quoting the law here, but he's just lying. This is what the law is, but this is not the law that's being used against the individual that's been talked about, and Mehdi knows it right away.
This isn't some vague issue.
I'll tell you. No,
Not true according to who?
According to the White House, Dan. The White House went to the Free Press yesterday. You should check your facts before you.
Such a good line.
The White House went to the Free Press and said, we're not accusing him of breaking any laws. So Congressman Dan Crenshaw is coming on TV making wild accusations of law breaking based on a quote that's not from
Well, they're
Khalil,
not
that
wild
doesn't say anything about
accusations.
terrorism. You just made that up.
It's just referencing the law.
They are. Well, hold on. You're wrong, Dan. First, accept that you're wrong. The White House said to the Free Press, Barry Weiss's right-wing Free Press, this week, we are not accusing him of breaking any laws. In fact, if you want to understand the laws, you need to look at the Immigration National Act of 1952. They're actually taking him into deportation proceedings under Section 237A4CI, which allows Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, to personally deport a migrant because he believes that migrant's presence has serious potential adverse consequences for U.S. foreign policy. That is the obscure act, which, by the way, was designed for Eastern European Jews to get rid of them because they were deemed to be communists in the 1950s. That is what Rubio is using to get rid of a lawful permanent resident. Now, whether that's legal or not, Trump's late sister, Judge Marion Trump Barry, said it was a violation of the First Amendment. We'll see if the Supreme Court gets involved. But the idea that we should live in a country where Marco Rubio or Antony Blinken can remove a green card holder because he doesn't like his views and they're against U.S. foreign policy, some nebulous aim, that's outrageous. And
It is wild. It is great that you brought it up, and I love that he does such a good job of calling out the lie for what it is, calling out just how ridiculous what the truth is in such a quick way, because you really have to do it, especially on shows like this, in a punchy way. I think last I checked, Piers has some 3 million subscribers, more maybe now, maybe 3.5 or approaching it. Tons of people watching the show, and it is because it's these short, these punchy interviews, but in order to contend with the people that come in here and lie as easily as they breathe, like Dan Crenshaw, who, why would you lie about that? Why would you say that? Is it just a misconception? Did you not read it? You get paid to do exactly this, not go on shows or do whatever, but to know things like this, to understand what's happening with the government, you're part of the leading party, your party is in the executive. You guys run the show. When you do come to answer on these ones, why is it so glaringly obvious that you have no fucking idea what you're talking about? Because Mehdi gets paid. That's why. Mehdi does an extremely good job because he gets paid money. I assume. Maybe he is the type of person where he would do it for free, and I don't want to speak for him because I've never had a chance to speak to him. But I imagine he gets paid a considerable amount of money. That's sponsorship, that his ability to pay for his needs and his family's needs allows him to take the other time that he would spend to get, food, shelter, all that stuff sorted. He gets to go about and do this. He does his job as a reporter, and he does it extremely well, I think, compared to others that you've seen. One of the things that I've talked about, one of the people that I follow on Blue Sky was talking about it. The mainstream media just doesn't do this good of a job. Pierce is the mainstream media here, somebody who just leans on one side. He's decided on most of the issues already, not really willing to do any of the research. He's somebody who throws out, oh, I've read this book, I've read that book. Who knows? I haven't spoken with him either. Big thing there is you can see the difference in this conversation, and it's been edited, and it's been edited heavily, I'll admit that. But you can see in this conversation, especially when Dan is speaking, just how off he is when it comes to the facts. You get paid to do this. Piers is no better when I've watched his full form interviews. You're not seeing a whole mess of factual knowledge that's thrown at you. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's a lack of factual knowledge. It's a random assortment picked here and there of a couple of facts that you like that aren't true, that you throw out as true, and then Mehdi has to come through 16 times and fix it, or somebody else has to come through 16 times, over, and hey, here's what you said, it was a half-truth, here's what you said, that's a lie, here's what you said, that's true, most of it was a lie. Going through and sorting this stuff out is so much, I like to say, it's so much more complicated, because how long does it take to smear shit on a wall? Like if you had 5 seconds to smear shit on a wall, how long would it take to clean up? It would take like hours. Like it would be like It's disgusting. Like, you can make so much more of a chaotic mess throwing out goofy random bullshit. But the big piece that gets me is it isn't just random people that throw out random bullshit. These are the elected officials. These are the people that you should be able to look to for some sort of leadership when it comes to this stuff.